I fly quite a bit and often end up on a Boeing 777. The biggest version of that aircraft weighs about 351,000 kgs, or 351 tons. That's a lot of weight to lift into the sky. The Wright Flyer, built around 1905, was the first maneuverable aircraft. It weighed about 400 kgs. That's nothing compared to the 3.5-ton modern airliner. However, the science that takes both aircraft into the sky is the same. We call it lift. Lift occurs when a movement of air over the wings creates a low pressure area on top of the wing and a high pressure area on the bottom. The high pressure area pushes the wing up, creating lift. So the Boeing 777 is nothing more than the realization of the scientific potential in the flimsy and lightweight Wright Flyer. The same scientific principle that lifted the Wright Flyer off the ground lifts the Boeing 777 off the ground. Now, the relationship between the Old and the New Testaments is similar. The New Testament is the realization of the purposes, the patterns, the promises, and the prophecies of the Old Testament. Modern Christians tend to put a huge divide between the two testaments, but the first Christians did not. Stauffer catches this when he says, "The first thing that is bound to strike us on opening a Greek New Testament is the immense number of Old Testament quotations. So we are brought back to an old truth which, for all its age, cannot be too often repeated. The Old Testament was the Bible of primitive Christianity." In a moment, we'll see how much the New Testament writers used the Old Testament. That data will reinforce the conviction that the theology of the New Testament is dependent upon and a development of the theology of the Old Testament. This is an important first principle of New Testament biblical theology. That principle is obvious in the history of redemption approach and the worldview story approach we studied last week. In both approaches, the primary question is, how does the New Testament carry forward the storyline or the redemptive history of the Old Testament? Beale explains it like this. The main facets of the Old Testament narrative story are then traced into and throughout the New Testament. The main elements of the Old Testament plotline become the basis for the formulation of the New Testament storyline. Thus, the New Testament storyline will be a transformation of the Old Testament one in the light of how the New Testament is seen to be an unfolding of the Old Testament, especially through fulfillment of the Old Testament. In this section of the class, we'll consider two things. First, the extent of the New Testament's use of the Old Testament, and second, how the New Testament writers used the Old Testament. Let's think about the extent of the New Testament's use of the Old Testament. I want to begin by thinking about quotations of the Old in the New. The statistics that I'm going to share with you are drawn from Gleason Archer's book, Old Testament Quotations in the New Testament, a Complete Survey. Archer looks at every Old Testament quotation in the New, setting them out in 4 columns that give the Masoretic text, the Septuagintal Greek text, the New Testament Greek text, and then a commentary on the textual differences. Beale says a quotation is a direct citation of an Old Testament passage that is easily recognizable by its clear and unique verbal parallelism. Many of these quotations are introduced by a formula. Quotations indicate that New Testament writers were concerned to anchor their teaching in the authority of the Old Testament. According to Archer, there are 285 direct quotations of the Old Testament in the New, following either the Masoretic or the Septuagintal text. He also says that there are 19 loose paraphrases in which the wording is slightly different from the original, but close enough that it's clear that the writer was specifically trying to cite this verse. Then he identifies 32 occasions where it's clear the New Testament writer is referring to an Old Testament passage, but there is no introductory formula that is given with the passage. Now, Nicole makes this observation about the extent of Old Testament quotations in the New Testament. It says, thus, a very conservative count discloses unquestionably at least 295 separate references to the Old Testament. These occupy some 352 verses of the New Testament, or more than 4.4%. Therefore, 1 in every 22.5 of the New Testament verses is a quotation. But quotations are only the beginning of the New Testament's saturation with the Old Testament. Some scholars say there are over 4,000 allusions to the Old Testament in the New Testament. Now, Beale defines an allusion as a brief expression consciously intended by the author to be dependent upon an Old Testament passage. As you can see, allusions are very loose, and since an allusion is harder to identify, scholarly opinion ranges widely on how many are found in the New Testament. The estimates range from anywhere from 600 to 4,100. Now, the presence of so much Old Testament material led Nicole to say, it can therefore be asserted that without exaggeration, more than 10% of the New Testament text is made up of citations or direct allusions to the Old Testament. According to Nicole, the Pentateuch is quoted 94 times, the prophets 99 times, the writings 85 times. Out of the 22 books in the Hebrew reckoning of the canon, only 6, that would be Judges, Ruth, Song of Solomon, Ecclesiastes, Esther, Ezra, Nehemiah, and Chronicles, only 6 are not explicitly referred to. Now, none of this takes into consideration the amount of space in the New Testament that is given to the exposition of these Old Testament passages. Neither does it consider the unconscious influence the Old Testament had on New Testament authors. Now, one of the things that concern people when we start thinking about New Testament quotations of the Old Testament is why there are textual differences between the New Testament quote and the Old Testament source. There are a number of reasons for that. One of which is that all quotes in the New Testament are translations, and no translation is an exact rendering of the original. If the writer is working out of the Masoretic text, he's working from Hebrew, and he has to put that in Greek. Johnson speaks to this when he says, in fact, such a practice, that is verbatim quotation, is impossible when the original material is in the Hebrew and the citation is in the Greek. It's the meaning derived from the Old Testament passage that was important. The second reason is that New Testament writers didn't follow modern rules of quotation. That would have been impossible in light of the nature of writing in the first century. No punctuation marks, no way to designate quotation or ellipsis. In quotation, no footnoting procedure, so we can't hold ancient writers to modern standards. Finally, New Testament writers often allude to Old Testament texts with no intention of quoting. This is a theory drawn from the fact that many quotations vary quite a bit from both the Masoretic text and the Septuagint in terms of connectives, word order, things like that. Not so much that it changes the meaning of the passage, but it's nothing close to what we would call a verbatim quote. So when we think about the New Testament use of the Old, we should think about a spectrum of uses. At the one end, we have citations. These are almost verbatim quotes, and often introductory formulas serve almost like a footnote. And then we have paraphrases where the writer adjusts the wording of the verse or the passage that he's referring to in order to contextualize it, to make it understandable to his audience. We have allusions where there's a very loose reference to something in the Old Testament. We'll talk about the paradigmatic use of the Old Testament in the next video. And then finally, at the other end of the spectrum, we have this unconscious worldview expression. Remember, most of the New Testament writers were Jewish. In their youth, they would have memorized large portions of the Tanakh, and this would have been in their consciousness constantly. Sort of the way a Christian might say, hey, watch out, as you sow, you shall also reap. And we're not consciously quoting Galatians, or we might say, the first will be last, and we're not consciously quoting from the Gospels. But these are a part of our worldview consciousness, and they just come out in the things that we'll be saying. And so the New Testament use did exist on a spectrum like this, all sorts, but it fills, it saturates the New Testament. The New Testament is saturated with the Old. Finally, I want us to think a bit about the attitude of the New Testament writers toward the Old Testament. This provides a framework for understanding how New Testament writers used the Scriptures. We may not always understand a particular use of the Old Testament, but if we frame it within their own attitude toward the Old Testament, we're less likely to draw conclusions that are not valid. I'd like to suggest that New Testament writers had a high view of the Old Testament Scriptures. I say that for 5 reasons. First of all, New Testament writers recognized the authority of the Old Testament. They believed it was essential to base their teaching on the Old Testament. At times, writers based their arguments on one verse of the Old Testament. For instance, Matthew points out that Jesus based his ideas about divorce and monogamy on one passage from the book of Genesis. In Matthew 19, 3-6, we read, he was asked by the Pharisees, "Is it lawful to divorce one's wife for any cause?" He answered, "Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning made them male and female? And he said, therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one. Whatever God has joined together, let not man separate." So here he argues for the fact that this is a union that people cannot break, and he argues indirectly for monogamy, which is a very big problem in certain cultures, and he does it through one verse. On another occasion, Paul based his argument upon the grammatical form of one word in the Old Testament. In Galatians chapter 3 and verse 6, he says, and not as to seeds as if there were many, but to seed, one. So the difference between a singular and a plural provides the basis for his argument. Reason number 2, the New Testament writers claim Old Testament scriptures are the very words of God. Nicole points out that in 56 New Testament quotations of the Old Testament, the introductory formula ascribes the authorship to God. These are of particular value when one realizes that many of the verses so cited are actually the words of men addressed to God. This means New Testament writers believed it was the scriptures themselves that were inspired, and they were the word of God regardless of who was speaking in the narrative. Number 3, they recognized the authority of the entire collection of Old Testament books. At times, introductory formulas refer to the law or to the prophets, and these are in fact a witness to the inerrancy of an authoritative canon. They also indicated that the New Testament writers did not feel certain verses were of greater authority than others. So they saw collections of Scripture as authoritative and as that which could be referenced to support their teaching. Number 4, they recognized the contemporary relevance of the ancient Scriptures. Paul said this in Romans 15:4. Whatever was written in the past was written for our learning, that we through the patience and comfort of the Scriptures might find hope. And then finally, they understood their task as a continuation of the same vein of revelation. And this is so clear in 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 16, when Peter says that Paul writes in his writings things that are difficult and people twist them as they do the other scriptures. So Peter saw Paul's work as a continuation in the vein of this Old Testament writing and having equal authority with it. So New Testament writers had a very high view of the Old Testament, and they saw their work as a continuation of that. Now, as we move in the next video to talk about the different ways they handled the Old Testament scriptures, we must keep this in mind. Thank you.